Part 1. The Route, the Record, and the Thursday Morning Ritual. The alarm went off at 5:45. Andre Thompson did not need it anymore. His body had learned the schedule so deeply over so many years that waking early had become less an act of discipline and more a simple fact of how he was built. 9 years with Stonebridge Logistics does that to a person. The bones learn the rhythm. The body anticipates the day before the mind has caught up. And on Thursdays specifically, something in him always stirred a little earlier, a little sharper, because Thursdays were not just any day on the route. Thursdays had a weight to them, a purpose. He showered in the dark and dressed carefully. Uniform shirt, olive green, with the Stonebridge Logistics logo embroidered on the left breast and his name stitched in white letters on the right chest. Andre. 2 syllables, clean and readable. He buttoned it from the bottom up and checked himself in the mirror the way a man checks himself when he has decided long ago exactly who he is and does not need to be reminded. Keys, water bottle, phone in the front pocket. By 6:50, he was at the district depot on the south edge of Mill Haven signing out the van. White both sides marked with the Stonebridge Logistics logo and the company phone number in bold navy print. The word mark was not small. It was not subtle. The logo ran the full length of each side panel, readable from 100 feet away. The phone number beneath it was printed in a font large enough to read from a moving vehicle on the opposite side of a 2-lane street. The van announced itself. It had always announced itself. It could not have failed to announce itself without a deliberate effort to make it less visible, and no one had made that effort because the whole point was that the vehicle be identifiable. Commercial delivery vans are not designed to blend in. They are designed to be seen. Andre had driven this van, or one exactly like it, on Mill Haven's east side for 6 years. Same van, same streets, same buildings, same faces. He knew Prentice Avenue. He knew the intersection where the road narrowed and a double-parked car could cost him 3 minutes. He knew the Mill Haven Community Arts Center's side entrance, which was easier for the cart than the main door. He knew the dock on Colebrook that flooded in heavy rain and required a longer walk. He knew the dog on Delmore White with brown ears who launched himself at the side of the van every single week and never had the slightest intention of biting anyone. He knew the coffee cart on Fenway that crept half a foot into the street in cold weather, and he had stopped being annoyed about it years ago. He knew his route. He loaded the manifest for Thursday. 12 stops, spread across the east side commercial and residential corridor running from the warehouse district at the south to the arts district near the waterfront at the north. The first delivery window opened at 8:15. Stop 9, the Mill Haven Community Arts Center on Prentice Avenue, had a window that closed at 10:55. He had made that delivery every Thursday for 6 years without once missing the window. Not once. The scanner log for his district archived on the Stonebridge Logistics routing system contained 144 consecutive on-time deliveries to that address. 144 Thursdays in a row. His on-time delivery rate overall placed him in the top 3% of the Mill Haven district. His supervisor had noted it in 3 consecutive annual reviews. There were 0 complaints on file in his 9-year record. Not one. The 12 boxes were already loaded before he reached the van, stacked and strapped against the rear cargo wall secured for transport. Supply donations for the Arts Center's Thursday morning session craft materials, literacy, workbooks, construction paper, by the ream-colored pencils in bulk boxes, markers organized by color, a stack of thin cardboard suitable for small building projects. Patricia Yuen had placed the order 6 weeks prior and confirmed the delivery by email on Monday. She had also sent confirmation texts to families on Wednesday evening, telling them the session would begin as scheduled at 11 a.m. Materials would be ready. 22 youth participants had been confirmed. Patricia ran the Thursday session herself. She had been director at the Mill Haven Community Arts Center for 4 years. She was organized, deliberate, and thorough in the way that people who run programs on limited budgets tend to be, because there is no margin for error when the margin is thin. She knew what showed up on Thursdays, because Andre made it show up on Thursdays without exception, and after 6 years of it showing up, she had long since stopped thinking about whether it would, and started thinking only about what to do with it when it arrived. Reliability disappears into the background of daily life. That is what reliability does. You only notice it when it stops. Andre pulled out of the depot at 7:26. The route was muscle memory. He did not need the map. He knew the turns, the parking configurations, the pace of traffic at different times on different streets. He knew which loading dock managers liked to talk and which ones wanted only the clipboard. He knew which building on Colebrook had a broken freight elevator that required handcarting to the 4th floor, and he had developed a technique for the stairs over the years that saved his lower back. He knew what Prentice Avenue looked like at 8 a.m. versus 10 a.m. versus 2 p.m., how the street changed with the light and the foot traffic and the parking turnover. He knew this district the way you know a place after 6 years of working inside it. Not as a visitor, as someone who belongs to it in a functional, recurring, necessary way. Someone whose van the residents had seen so many times it registered as part of the landscape. Part of the Thursday morning. At 7:50 he started the live stream. He had been doing this for 6 months. Not every single day Thursdays were the anchor. Tuesdays, sometimes, occasionally a Wednesday, if the route had something worth sharing. He had started the stream after an incident on a different street on a different morning. Details he had not described publicly, and had made a considered private decision not to describe publicly. The stream was not born of anger, though anger had been part of what preceded it. It was not a protest, though it documented something worth protesting. It was documentation. A record running in real time of what a working morning looked like for a man doing his job on public streets in a marked company vehicle in the Millhaven metro area. It was also on some level a kind of company, small daily proof that someone was watching. Someone knew where he was and what he was doing and could say, if ever asked, that at 8:17 a.m. on a Thursday in March. Andre Thompson was on Colebrook Street with a scanner in his hand and a manifest on the seat, and a white van with his name on it, and everything was ordinary. The phone was mounted on the dashboard with a clip mount bought at an electronics store on Fenway. The angle showed the road ahead, a slice of the rearview mirror, and the lower edge of the driver's seat. His hands were visible in the lower frame when he drove. Occasionally, he narrated a stop, announced the street name, described a tight parking situation, mentioned a building he liked. Mostly, the stream was ambient. The sound of the city coming awake, the hum of the van's engine, the beep of the scanner, the percussion of an ordinary working morning. His audience was small but consistent. He had a few dozen regulars. People who tuned in for the morning the way some people put on a familiar radio station for company, for the texture of an ordinary life moving through an ordinary world. One viewer always wrote "Good Morning Thursday" within the first few minutes of the stream going live. A dispatcher at a different logistics company had followed him since the second week and had never missed a Thursday. A retired postal worker in another city who had found the channel through an algorithm recommendation and stayed for reasons he had never fully explained, but who always left at least one comment describing something he recognized from his own years doing route work. Small audience. Loyal audience. Present. Andre made his first 3 stops without incident. He signed out the first delivery at 8:19, the second at 8:52, third at 9:18. Scanner logged windows, met manifests matched. He moved north through the middle corridor of the route as the city thickened around him and the morning commute approached its peak. The viewer count on the stream held at 34 for a while, then ticked to 38. The regular who always said good morning had said good morning at 7:53, and Andre had said it back to the camera. He did not know that at 9:44 someone had placed a call. The call came in on the Millhaven Metro Police Department's non-emergency line. A caller reported a suspicious vehicle and provided a description of a black male in a dark vehicle in the 900 block of Prentice Avenue. That was the entirety of it. No specific behavior described, no plate number, no make or model, no indication of what act had prompted suspicion. Just a black male and a dark vehicle. Officer Cody Hawes had been on patrol on Prentice Avenue since 7 a.m. He received the dispatch at 9:44. He ran a license plate at 10:08. The plate he ran belonged to Andre's van and returned to Stonebridge Logistics, a commercial delivery company registered in good standing in the state of the Millhaven metro area, no flags of any kind attached. He pulled his patrol vehicle in behind the van at 10:11. The viewer count was 41. Andre's van was white. Both sides displayed the Stonebridge Logistics wordmark and company phone number Navy on white in print large enough to be read from a moving car on the opposite side of a two-lane street. His uniform shirt displayed his name in 2-inch stitched letters. The scanner was on his belt. The manifest was in the center console. His phone on the dashboard had been running a live stream for 1 hour and 21 minutes. The call had described a dark vehicle. Part 2. First contact. The lights activated at 10:11. Andre caught them in his left side mirror before the siren chirped one short tone, the pullover signal, and he brought the van to the curb immediately. No hesitation. No delay. Both hands moved to the steering wheel and stayed there. He checked his mirrors once confirmed the position of the patrol car behind him, and then fixed his hands at 10 and 2 and waited. His breathing was even. His back was straight against the seat. 41 people were watching. He did not reach for the phone. He did not say anything to the stream. He kept his hands visible on the wheel and watched the approaching officer in the mirror. The officer was walking slowly, taking the full width of the lane, one hand already resting on the top of his holster. Andre had his window down before the officer reached it. Officer Cody Hawes was 31 years old, 3 years on the force. His record contained 2 use-of-force incidents, both involving black men during vehicle stops. The first had been reviewed by the department and found within policy, though the review documentation was thin and the reviewing supervisor had since left the department. The second incident was still under review at the time of this stop, having been filed 8 months prior with no resolution yet reached. His most recent performance evaluation, conducted 4 months earlier, contained a supervisor notation that his stop documentation did not consistently match probable cause standards. The note had not resulted in any additional oversight, any retraining requirement, or any formal discussion with Hawes on record. It sat in a file. He arrived at Andre's window. His hand did not leave the holster. He told Andre to turn off the engine and keep his hands where he could see them. Andre turned off the engine. Both hands returned to 10 and 2 on the steering wheel, unhurried, visible. Hawes said he had some questions. He said the vehicle had come up as suspicious. Andre said he was on a scheduled delivery route for Stonebridge Logistics. He said his route manifest was in the center console and Hawes was welcome to look at it if that would help. He said his next stop was the Millhaven Community Arts Center on Prentice Avenue, scheduled delivery window closing at 10:55, 12 boxes in the back of the van. He said his name was Andre Thompson, employee identification number available on his badge. Hawes did not look at the center console. He asked what Andre was doing on Prentice Avenue. Andre said he had been delivering on Prentice Avenue every Thursday for 6 years. He said it clearly at a conversational pace, the way a person states a fact they have stated many times and expect to be unremarkable. He gestured toward the side of the van, the logo. The company named the phone number in navy on white and said, all of it was right there if Hawes needed to see it. Hawes did not look at the side of the van. He told Andre to step out of the vehicle. Andre said he understood. He said he was going to reach for the door handle now with both hands visible, and he described this before he did it. He said it slowly and clearly. He opened the door carefully, both hands framed in the window before he pushed the door fully open, and he stepped out onto the curb in his uniform shirt, name on the chest. Company logo on the breast with the scanner clipped to his belt and his hands open at his sides. He told Hawes that his delivery scanner was clipped to his belt on the right side. He said his phone was mounted on the dashboard and had been running a live stream for the past hour and 22 minutes. He said this the way he said everything else, calmly, clearly, as disclosure and information, not as a warning, not as a challenge. Just here are the facts of the situation offered freely. Hawes did not acknowledge the stream. He did not look at the phone on the dashboard. He did not look at the side of the van. He looked at Andre and said he had received a call about a suspicious vehicle. He said it as though this phrase was a container that did not need to be opened or compared against the reality in front of him. A call, a description, as if the description and the man and the vehicle and the name stitched on the chest were four separate facts that did not need to be placed next to each other and examined. The viewer count of the stream had climbed to 112 while Andre was opening the door. Someone had sent a link in the chat. Someone else had sent another link somewhere else. The usual slow morning trickle of viewership had been replaced by something sharper, something that moved differently. 8 miles away at the Stonebridge Logistics routing center, a dispatcher named Kezia was watching her routing screen and seeing something she should not have been seeing. Andre's van had been stationary on Prentice Avenue for 3 minutes and 40 seconds, with no active stop logged on the manifest. The next stop, the Arts Center, was not for another 12 blocks and 9 minutes. She pulled up the manifest to confirm. Stop, 9 Arts Center, 10:55 window close. Van stationary since 10:11. She switched to the live stream. She recognized the street. She found the non-emergency line for the precinct covering Prentice Avenue and dialed. The automated system gave her an estimated hold time of approximately 4 minutes. She stayed on the line and kept watching both screens. Back on Prentice Avenue, Hawes asked Andre for identification. Andre said yes, it was in his back left pocket, and asked if he could reach for it. Hawes said yes. Andre slowly retrieved his wallet, produced his driver's license and his Stonebridge Logistics employee badge simultaneously. He held both out. Hawes looked at them for longer than he needed to. He looked at the name on the license. He looked at the name on the badge. Both said Andre Thompson. He handed them back without writing anything down. A woman walking a small brown dog on the near sidewalk had slowed her pace and then stopped entirely. She was standing 20 feet away with the dog's leash held short, watching. A man at the bus stop further down had stopped pretending to look at his phone and was now simply watching openly. An older woman at the corner had turned fully to face the scene. Nobody said anything. Nobody moved toward the van or the officer. There was a kind of suspended collective stillness around the stop, the way crowds pause when something feels wrong but has not yet become definable. The viewer count was 240. Kezia was on minute 3 of her hold. She had Andre's route manifest on one screen and the live stream on the other. She had already drafted an alert message to Diane Reeves, the operations manager for the Millhaven district, flagging the stop and citing the delivery window for the Arts Center. She had not yet sent it because she was hoping the stop would resolve before Diane needed to know about it. The stop did not resolve. Hawes had not looked at the center console where the route manifest sat in plain view. He had not looked at the side of the van with its company name in navy letters. He had held the license and the employee badge together in his hand and given them back without noting a single detail from either. He had run the plate before the stop and seen the Stonebridge commercial registration and still pulled behind the van. He was now looking at the scanner on Andre's belt. Part 3, the escalation. Hawes said the description he had received was a black male in a dark vehicle. Andre said, without raising his voice, he was standing next to a white van. He said the Stonebridge Logistics logo was on both sides. He said his name was on his shirt. He gestured toward his chest, a small motion hand still open. He said he could pull up the delivery manifest on his scanner if that would help confirm the stop. He said the scanner was on his belt right side and he was going to reach for it now. He reached. Hawes drew his firearm. The command was loud and immediate freeze. Andre froze. Both hands came up in a single movement, palms flat facing outward, fingers spread. His eyes level, his back straight. The scanner had not been touched. His fingertips had not reached the clip. His hand was approximately 6 inches from the device when the weapon came out, and in the fraction of a second between beginning the reach and hearing the command, he had stopped entirely. He stood with his hands raised in front of a white commercial delivery van with his name on his shirt on a street where he had worked for 6 years. The firearm was pointed at him. On the live stream, the viewer count jumped. 300, 400, past 500 inside a single minute. The chat, which had been scrolling at a pace where individual comments were readable, was no longer readable. It had become a white cascade of text moving faster than the eye could follow. Someone was posting the link in comment sections on other platforms. Multiple people were posting the link. The video was escaping its original channel and landing in feeds that had nothing to do with the logistics or delivery routes. 600 viewers. Hawes was giving commands. He told Andre not to move. He told him to keep his hands up and stay still. The commands were loud and they repeated. Andre stood with his hands raised, saying nothing, doing nothing. His palms open to the morning air and his eyes forward. His name was on his shirt. The scanner was on his belt untouched. The white van was directly behind him. None of this appeared to reach Hawes. On the sidewalk, the woman with the small brown dog had stepped sideways behind a parked car, not hiding exactly, but creating a piece of distance between herself and a drawn firearm on a public street, which is a reasonable thing for any person to do, regardless of their relationship to either party involved. She was still watching from behind the parked car's rear quarter panel. She did not leave. The man at the bus stop had put his phone away entirely and was watching in open, fixed silence. Across the street, a man who had been inside his house came to the front porch. He put his hands on the railing. He stood there. He did not go inside. Not go. Nobody could do anything. That was the specific texture of this moment. There was a drawn weapon on a public street, and a man in a delivery uniform with his hands raised, and a growing number of people who were present and witnesses and entirely without agency over the outcome. The watchers on the sidewalk, the watchers on the screen, everyone suspended in the same helpless position of seeing clearly and being unable to act. The firearm remained drawn. A resident in one of the buildings on Prentice Avenue, not a police officer, not Hawes, called for backup at 10:16. She had been watching from her second-floor window and reached a point where she needed to do something, and the thing she could do was call. The backup vehicle arrived at 10:23. The backup officer parked behind Hawes's car stepped out and looked at the scene. He looked at the van. He looked at Andre's uniform. He looked at the scanner on Andre's belt. He looked at the side of the van, the logo, the word mark, the phone number, all of it clearly visible from where he stood. And then he turned and looked at Hawes. He asked Hawes what the description was. Hawes said dark vehicle, black male. The backup officer looked at the white van again. He looked at it for a long time. The kind of looking that is not really about seeing the object, but about processing the gap between what you are seeing and what you were told you would see. He looked at the logo. He looked at the navy letters. He looked at the phone number. He stood in that gap and looked at it. Then he walked to the passenger side of the van. He asked Andre if the route manifest was in the vehicle. Andre said yes, center console. The backup officer opened the passenger door and found the manifest in 5 seconds. He held it in both hands and looked at it. He found the Art Center entry stop 91055 window 12 boxes consignment number listed. He looked at his watch. The time was 10:25. He told Andre quietly that this was stop 9 on the manifest. Andre said yes. The viewer count had passed 4,000. Kezia's hold line had connected at 10:22. She was speaking clearly and steadily to someone at the precinct, explaining who she was, what her company was, and the situation she was watching in real time on the live stream and on her routing screen simultaneously. She described the van. She gave the plate number. She described the route manifest. She read from the call description on her dispatch log, dark vehicle, black male. She said the van was white and bore the company name on both sides. She said the delivery window for the Art Center closed at 10:55. She said there were 22 youth participants in the program the materials were intended for. She said all of this calmly in the tone of someone who has been in logistics for 16 years and knows how to convey precise information under pressure. The person she had reached went to find someone with authority to act. She was placed on hold again. She kept watching both screens. The live stream had passed 5,000 viewers. Someone in the chat had posted the link to the Millhaven Police Department's formal complaint portal. Someone else had already started filling it out and was posting screenshots of the form. The chat was moving at a speed that made individual comments impossible to read but created a visual texture that communicated something on its own, a kind of collective urgency, a shared witnessing. Hawes' supervisor reached him by radio at 10:27. The supervisor said the stop did not match the call description. He asked Hawes to confirm the vehicle's status. He said the description was a dark vehicle. Hawes was still holding his weapon. 16 seconds passed. Then he holstered. He walked to Andre. Andre's hands were still partially raised. Hawes told him he was free to go. He said sorry for the inconvenience. He said it in the tone of someone closing a transaction. He did not ask if Andre was all right. He did not look at the scanner on Andre's belt. He did not look at the route manifest the backup officer was still holding. He turned and walked back to his patrol vehicle without saying anything more to anyone. The backup officer looked at Andre. He said, "Are you good?" Andre said yes. The backup officer stood at the curb for a moment. He looked at the van. He looked at the space where Hawes had been standing. He looked at the scanner on Andre's belt. He did not say anything else. He walked back to his vehicle slowly, and then he stopped for a moment with one hand on the roof of his car, standing still in a way that did not look like stopping to rest. It looked like standing in a moment that required standing in before moving past it. Then he got in his car. The viewer count was 7,312. The stream was still running. The stop had lasted 24 minutes. The firearm had been drawn for 4 minutes and 41 seconds. Hawes had run the license plate before the stop, seen the Stonebridge Logistics commercial registration, and pulled behind the van. He had held the driver's license and employee badge and returned them without noting anything. He had been told during a radio call that the stop did not match the description. He had never once looked at the side of the van. Andre got back in the van. Part 4, 22 seconds. He sat down. Both hands went to the steering wheel. Eyes forward. The van was still at the curb on Prentice Avenue. The engine was off. The live stream was still running on the phone mounted on the dashboard, and the viewer count was visible in the corner of the screen in a number that kept climbing. 7,312. The chat was scrolling faster than any human eye could follow. It had become something visual rather than something readable. A column of white text against dark background moving at a pace that communicated volume and intensity without allowing comprehension of any individual message. 7,000 people were watching a man sit in a delivery van on a public street with his hands on a steering wheel. Andre did not speak. He sat. The silence was not theatrical. It was not performed for the audience. It was the silence of a man who had just experienced something for which the immediate language did not yet exist, and who had enough self-possession, enough built-in knowledge of who he was and what he was doing, not to reach for language that would be wrong. He had spent 4 minutes and 41 seconds with a weapon pointed at him for reaching toward a delivery scanner on his own belt. He was sitting with that. 7 seconds passed. 12. Someone in the chat was posting his name over and over. Someone else was posting the precinct phone number with instructions to call. Someone was sharing the complaint portal link again, updated with a direct path to the submission form. Someone was typing in lowercase that they could not breathe watching this. Someone was typing, "He is so still." He was still. 18 seconds. 22. Then he said his name. He said it the way a person says their own name when they need to hear it to remain located in a moment that has tried to dislocate them. Not to the camera, not to the audience. To himself first, and then to whatever record was running. He said his name, and he said his route number, and he said he had been delivering on Prentice Avenue for 6 years. He said it without hurry. He did not raise his voice. He did not fill the silence with accusations or declarations or anger. Though any of those things would have been understandable, would have been human, would have been easy to justify given what had just happened. He said the plain facts of who he was and where he was and what he had been doing on this street before the lights came on behind him. He said there was a delivery due at the Millhaven Community Arts Center in 11 minutes. He picked up the scanner from the seat where he had set it when he got back in the van. He checked the manifest entry for stop 9, window still open. 11 minutes. He started the van. He checked his mirrors. He pulled away from the curb with his signal on. He drove north on Prentice Avenue at a careful, lawful speed, both hands on the wheel, the way he always drove, the way he had always driven on this street for 6 years. The clip from the moment the firearm was drawn to the moment Andre said his name, including the 22 seconds of silence, was 53 seconds long. Someone captured it as a screen recording and posted it to another platform within 40 minutes of the stop ending. By noon Thursday, 1.4 million people had watched it. By 6 p.m. Thursday, 11 million. The number kept climbing. At 10:29 a.m. in his patrol vehicle 3 blocks from the stop, Officer Cody Hawes completed his incident log for the morning. He wrote traffic stop vehicle check suspect description, did not match, no charges filed. He described the outcome with the phrase, situation resolved without incident. He did not record the duration of the firearm deployment. He did not record the commands that had been issued, or their volume, or their repetition. He did not note the presence of bystanders on the sidewalk, or the backup officer's arrival, or the backup officer's examination of the route manifest. He did not record that the vehicle description from the initiating call was dark vehicle and that the vehicle he stopped was white with commercial markings. He did not record that a supervisor's radio intervention had preceded the decision to holster. His supervisor would not see the log until later in the morning. At 11 a.m., a journalist emailed the livestream clip link to the Millhaven Metro Police Department's Public Affairs Office. The subject line said Prentice Avenue stop. The public affairs officer watched the clip and forwarded it to the patrol division supervisor. The patrol division supervisor watched it and then pulled up Hawes's incident log from the morning. He read the phrase, situation resolved without incident. He read it twice. He looked at the clip again. He looked at the log again. He sent a message to his own supervisor. Meanwhile, the clip continued to move. It was being shared in community groups, in parent forums, in neighborhood networks. It was being retweeted by accounts with large followings. News desks were capturing it and adding it to Thursday evening broadcasts. A legal organization specializing in civil rights cases had logged it before 2 p.m. for assessment. Diane Reeves had seen the stream live. She was the operations manager for Stonebridge Logistics' Millhaven district supervisor, of dispatchers, managers, and the routing staff that kept 14 drivers on schedule across the East Side commercial corridor. A dispatcher named Kezia had pulled the stream up on a shared monitor in the routing room at 10:34 and said Diane's name. Diane walked over and watched the last 3 minutes of the stop. She watched Hawes holster. She watched Andre sit in the van. She watched 22 seconds of silence. She watched Andre say his name. She did not speak during any of it. Then she went to her desk and began pulling documentation. Andre's employment record, 9 years uninterrupted, not a single complaint filed. On-time delivery rate consistently in the top 3% of the Millhaven district across all 9 years. Not a recent improvement, not a brief peak, a sustained 9-year record. She pulled Thursday's route manifest. She pulled the scanner log for the morning, which showed time-stamped entries for stops 1 through 8, with each delivery window met. She pulled the call log entry from the original complaint that had initiated the stop dark vehicle black male. She read the description carefully. Then she pulled up the fleet management file for the van. White, Stonebridge Logistics wordmark on both sides. Company phone number below the wordmark, navy on white. She had the formal complaint drafted and submitted to the Millhaven Metro Police Department by 11:15 a.m. Attached the 9-year employment record, the delivery statistics, the Thursday route manifest, the scanner log for the morning of the stop. the delivery window documentation for the Arts Center, and a copy of the call log description from the initiating complaint. The call description was highlighted. Dark vehicle. The van was white and bore the company name on both sides. At 10:49 a.m., Andre Thompson arrived at the Millhaven Community Arts Center. He parked in his regular spot at the side entrance. He went to the back of the van and began unloading the 12 boxes of donated supplies. He carried them on the cart, same as always, through the side entrance to the lobby. He knew the angle of the door. He knew the exact spot on the lobby floor where Patricia Yuen wanted the boxes staged. He staged them there. Patricia was at the lobby door. She had seen the clip. A colleague had sent it to her at 10:43 while she was still arranging the session space. She had watched it in the hallway on her phone standing near the supply closet, and when it ended, she had put the phone in her pocket. She had stood there for a moment. Then she had walked to the lobby and waited by the door. She did not say what she had seen. She took the scanner when Andre held it out and signed each entry. 12 boxes, each one logged, each one matched to the manifest. She signed without hurrying and without ceremony. She said, "Thank you, Andre. See you next Thursday." Andre said yes. "See you next Thursday." He went back to the van and returned to his route. He finished the route at 1:52 p.m. His on-time delivery rate for the day was 97%. The Arts Center delivery, including the 24-minute stop, had still arrived at 10:49, 6 minutes inside the 10:55 window. The 22 seconds of silence had been watched 11 million times by 6 p.m. Nobody in the comment sections knew quite what to do with it. They tried to describe it. They tried to explain it. They sent it to people and watched their reactions. They watched it again themselves. The silence was the part nobody could move past. It was the part that kept pulling people back. Over and over the same 53 seconds. They kept watching. Part 5, The Weight of Evidence. Friday came in hard. By 8 a.m., the Millhaven Metro Police Department's online public complaints portal had received over 6,000 formal submissions. Not a flood of passive social media outrage. 6,000 people who had found the link navigated to the page, filled out the form with their name and contact information, written a description of their concern, and clicked submit. Each one a documented, trackable, addressable record. The link had first been posted in the livestream's comment section at noon Thursday, placed there by a viewer who had been watching since before the stop began, and who within minutes of Hawes walking away had opened the department's website in a second tab, found the complaints portal, and posted the direct link in the chat with no additional comment. By Friday morning, that link had been clicked 42,000 times. The department's public affairs office had been managing media inquiries since Thursday afternoon. By Friday morning, 3 national outlets had published stories on the incident. 2 local television stations had run the clip in their Thursday evening newscasts. A legal organization specializing in civil rights litigation had issued a public statement announcing it was reviewing the incident. The clip had been viewed 11 million times. The department held a press conference at 10 a.m. Friday. The chief spoke first. She said the department was aware of the incident on Prentice Avenue and was taking it seriously. She acknowledged that the stop had not matched the call description. The call had reported a dark vehicle, and the vehicle stopped was white and marked with the company name and contact information on both sides. She said the nature and duration of the firearm deployment was under review. She said the department intended to reach out to Andre Thompson directly and to his employer. She did not say Officer Hawes' name. A reporter asked whether the firearm deployment had been justified under department use of force policy. The chief said the review would determine that. A reporter asked what the initiating call description had been. The chief said dark vehicle, black male. A reporter asked what color the van was. A pause. The chief said white. The room was quiet for a moment. Then a second reporter asked a follow-up, and the press conference continued. But that pause and what it contained was in every news segment that ran that afternoon. While the press conference was underway, Hawes' patrol division supervisor was in a review room with 2 monitors set up side by side. On the left monitor, the incident report Hawes had filed Thursday morning scrolled to the relevant section. On the right monitor, the dashboard camera footage from Hawes' patrol vehicle synchronized to the same timeline as the live stream recording. The dashboard footage was the thing. It showed the view from Hawes's patrol camera as he pulled in behind Andre's van at 10:11. From that approach angle and from that position at the curb, clearly unmistakably in the center of the frame, the side of Andre's van was visible. The full Stonebridge Logistics wordmark. The company phone number. All of it in the dashboard footage from the moment Hawes pulled in. He had been in that position for 3 full minutes before he approached the window. 3 minutes of footage showing the van's marked side panel directly in front of Hawes's patrol camera while he ran the plate and prepared for the stop. The supervisor watched the 3 minutes of footage. Then he read the incident report again. Situation resolved without incident. He looked at the dashboard timestamp. He looked at the logo on the side of the van in the footage. He forwarded both to the department's Internal Affairs Division that afternoon. Diane Reeves's formal complaint had arrived the day before with its full documentation package. It was now part of the same review file. 6,000 public complaints were in the portal. The legal organization had filed its preliminary review request. A journalist had sent a formal records request for all prior incident logs associated with Hawes's patrol history. The Internal Affairs Review Board was convened within 5 days. The board convened on a Tuesday morning with a full materials packet. The dashboard footage, the live stream recording. The call log from the initiating complaint. Hawes's incident report. Diane Reeves's formal complaint with all attachments. The backup officer's written statement. Documentation on both prior use of force incidents in Hawes's record and the performance review notation about stop documentation. The board chair read through Hawes's incident report at the start of the session. She read it aloud in sections. When she reached the final section, she read the phrase, "Situation resolved without incident." She put the report down on the table in front of her. She asked for the dashboard footage to be played from the point of Hawes's approach at 10:11. The footage played. The logo on the side of the van was visible from the first frame. It sat in the center of the frame for 3 minutes and 11 seconds while Hawes's patrol camera recorded it before Hawes opened his door and walked toward the window. The board chair did not say anything for a moment. Then she asked that the board move through the materials in sequence. The board's deliberation lasted 2 days. On Thursday, 1 week after the stop on Prentice Avenue, the board issued its findings. The stop did not meet probable cause standards. The initiating call had described a dark vehicle. The vehicle stopped was white with commercial markings on both sides. There was no additional articulable basis for the stop beyond the call description, which the stopped vehicle did not match. The firearm deployment was not justified by the information available at the time of the stop. The incident report materially omitted relevant details, including the duration of the firearm deployment, the nature of commands issued during the deployment, and the presence of bystanders. The report's characterization of the outcome as resolved without incident was not consistent with the documented facts of the incident. Officer Cody Hawes was placed on desk assignment pending implementation of the board's recommendation. The recommendation was a 60-day suspension without pay, mandatory requalification training, and a board position against return to vehicle patrol assignment. The 2 prior use of force incidents in his record were referred for separate supplemental review. The department issued a formal written apology to Andre Thompson. The apology was specific. It named the date. It named the location, Prentice Avenue, Millhaven metro area. It named the duration of the firearm deployment, 4 minutes and 41 seconds. It said the stop did not match the call description that initiated it. It said the vehicle stopped was a marked commercial delivery vehicle. It said the driver was a uniformed employee of a licensed commercial carrier in the midst of a scheduled delivery route. And then it said in plain language, this should not have happened. 5 words. This should not have happened. Andre Thompson received the apology by mail and by email on the same day. He read it in his kitchen on a Thursday morning. He read it twice and then set it on the counter and stood in the kitchen for a moment. Then he picked up his keys. He had a route to run. Part 6. The return and what held. The following Thursday, the route started at 7:26. Same depot, same manifest sequence, same 12 stops. The scanner was on his belt before the keys were in his hand the way it always was. The phone mounted on the dashboard. Live stream beginning at 7:50. The viewer count when the stream started was 943. By the time he reached the first stop on Colebrook, it was over 1,100. By the time he crossed into the middle corridor of the route, it was past 1,500. The regulars were in the chat Good Morning Thursday at 7:53, same as always. The retired postal worker had written back on the route. The dispatcher from the other company had written nothing yet, but her username was in the viewer list. New viewers, too. Many new viewers. People who had found the channel through the clip, through the news segments, through the 40 million views. The silence had now accumulated across all reposts and all platforms. People who had watched the 53-second clip and wanted to see what the route looked like on an ordinary day, what the van looked like moving through Millhaven, what a working morning looked like for a man who had one Thursday sat for 22 seconds in a silence that 40 million people could not stop watching. He drove the morning route without incident. He stopped at Colebrook. He stopped at Fenway. He made the third and fourth stops on the North Commercial stretch. He moved through the city at his regular pace, the way he had always moved through it. The scanner logged each entry. The windows were met. At 10:32, he turned onto Prentice Avenue. The viewer count at that moment was 4,009. He made his first Prentice Avenue stop, then his second. At 10:43, he pulled into the regular spot at the Millhaven Community Arts Center side entrance. He got out, went to the back, loaded the cart with the 12 boxes in the usual sequence. He wheeled the cart to the side entrance. Patricia Yuen was at the door. She took the scanner. She signed each entry same as she had signed them every Thursday for 4 years. 12 boxes. She did not rush, and she did not linger. Then she looked up at him. She said, "Good to see you." She said it in her normal voice, and also not entirely in her normal voice. There was something additional in it, a weight, a layered quality that ordinary words sometimes acquire when they are asked to carry more than their face value. The words were exactly the ones she always used. They meant something more than they always meant. Andre understood this without needing it explained. He said, "Good to be here." He meant it the same way she had meant it. Not as a pleasantry, as a statement that contained within it a recognition of what it had taken to be here in this doorway on this Thursday, delivering on time. She handed him the scanner back. She glanced at the phone in his shirt pocket, the viewer count visible in the corner of the screen, and she said, "You have quite an audience." He said, "They keep coming back." She said, "Of course they do." She did not say anything else about Prentice Avenue. She did not mention the week before. She did not reference the board's findings, or the apology, or the 11 million, or the 40 million. She had thought about all of those things in the days between Thursdays. She had thought about them at her desk while she was writing grant applications, and in the parking lot after a late evening, and during the drive-in that morning. But the work in front of her was the work in front of her. The session was starting at 11. 22 participants would be walking through the main entrance in the next hour and a half. The materials were here. The morning was what it was supposed to be. Andre went back to the van. He drove. He finished the route at 1:48 p.m. His on-time delivery rate for the day was 98%. Stonebridge Logistics had issued a public statement the previous week. It expressed full support for Andre Thompson and his 9-year service record. The statement had been drafted by the company's communications team, reviewed by legal counsel, and approved by the regional director. Before it was released, Diane Reeves had asked for one addition. It was placed at the end of the statement after the formal language in a sentence that stood on its own. The sentence said, "Andre Thompson has been delivering in this district for 9 years and has earned every number in his performance file." That line had not been in the original draft. It was Diane's line. She had written it on a Tuesday afternoon at her desk, looking at the call log description, dark vehicle, and then at the photo of the white-marked van in the fleet management system, and she had written it the way a person writes something when they want to make sure it cannot be misunderstood. The Arts Center session on the Thursday of Andre's return ran from 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. 22 youth participants opened boxes of supply donations, construction paper, colored pencils, workbooks, the things that had been in Andre's van every Thursday for 6 years. Patricia did not mention Prentice Avenue to the participants that day. The session was what it was, a room full of young people with materials in their hands and work in front of them. Patricia would mention it later. In the fall, at a community safety forum held in the center's main hall, she would stand at the front of the room and talk about the morning her regular delivery had arrived on time as always, and what she had seen on her phone before it arrived, and what it had meant to see Andre walk through the side entrance with the cart. She would say, "I signed the scanner, and I did not say anything about what I had seen. I have thought about that since, whether I should have said something. But I think what I needed that morning was for something to be normal, and he gave me that. He came, and he did his job, and he let the morning be what it was supposed to be." She would pause and then say, "That took something. To do that. To just drive and come and deliver and do the job after what had happened. I have thought about that quite a bit." She would be right to think about it. The viewer count the following Thursday, when Andre reached the Prentice Avenue stretch of his route, was over 6,000. The chat was warm. People writing still here. People writing every Thursday. The retired postal worker who had followed the channel from the beginning, writing a longer comment than usual about what it meant to have spent years doing route work and to know what a 9-year record like that actually required from a person day after day after day. The route was the same. The Arts Center delivery was on time. That was the point. That was the whole of it. The record had been built over 9 years, carefully stop by stop, window by window, scanner entry by scanner entry. A person had stood in front of it with a drawn weapon for 4 minutes and 41 seconds, and the record had held. Not despite the stop. Not because the stop had not happened. The stop had happened. The weapon had been real. The 22 seconds of silence had been real. And then the man had said his name and driven away and made the delivery, and the record had held. Some things are built to a depth that cannot be easily undone. Some things, given enough years and enough care and enough showing up on time, regardless of what the morning brings, become harder to diminish than any single moment of diminishment can accomplish. The delivery was on time. It was always on time. That was the fingerprint the story left. Not the drawn weapon, though the weapon was real, and its consequences were real, and its review and its judgment were real and necessary. The fingerprint was the van pulling up to the Arts Center side entrance at 10:49, 6 minutes inside the window, and Patricia Yuen at the door, and 12 boxes staged on the lobby floor, and 22 youth participants who arrived at 11 and found everything ready. That was what 40 million people were watching when they could not stop watching 22 seconds of silence. They were watching what it takes to be that person on that street in that van after that. They were watching a man hold. Part 7. What the 40 million means. The number 40 million is difficult to place inside any human frame. 40 million individual instances of watching a 53-second clip. If every view ran the full clip, a generous assumption since many people rewatched it multiple times in a single session, that amounts to over 2 billion seconds of cumulative human attention concentrated on one man, in one van, on one street, on one Thursday morning, in the Millhaven metro area. Over 67 years of cumulative human time, sitting with 22 seconds of silence. Most people watched it more than once. The data on this kind of clip is consistent. The rewatching rate is highest on clips where something happens that the viewer cannot fully metabolize on a single pass, where the moment requires more than one witnessing before the viewer can determine what they have seen. The silence was that kind of moment. People watched it, and then before they had consciously decided they were watching it again, and then they sent it to someone, and watched their person watch it, and watched it again after that. 2 published academic research papers attempted an account of why. The first paper, published in a journal focused on digital media and civic documentation, made an argument about what the silence communicated structurally. It noted that Andre had not issued statements during those 22 seconds. He had not addressed the camera. He had not performed visible emotion. He had simply been present, visibly, documentably, in the frame to what had just been done to him. The paper argued that this created an unusual burden for the viewer. There was no emotional cue to follow. There was no argument to agree or disagree with. The silence placed the interpretive work entirely on the watcher. It asked, "You have seen this, now what do you make of it?" And because the question was left open and unanswered, the viewer could not leave it. They kept returning to try again. The second paper focused on bystander recording and police accountability, used a phrase that was widely cited after the paper was published, a form of testimony that asks nothing of the viewer but to remain present. Andre had not set out to create testimony. He had set out to document his workday. He had begun the live stream 6 months earlier after an incident on a different street, an incident he had not described publicly, had made a deliberate private decision about, and would continue to keep private. The stream was not an argument. It was a record, a running timestamp on what a working morning looked like for a man in a marked commercial vehicle on Millhaven's East Side streets. The record turned out to matter. 41 viewers when Hawes appeared at the window. 600 when the firearm was drawn. 7,312 when it was holstered. 11 million by 6 p.m. Thursday. 40 million total. Each view a person who had been present. Each share a decision that this was something that needed to be seen. Each formal complaint, 6,000 of them submitted through a government portal on the record with names attached to a person who had decided that watching was not enough. The formal complaint from Diane Reeves had been filed before noon Thursday. The documentation she submitted did not require interpretation. It required only reading dark vehicle, white van, company name on both sides, 9-year record, 144 consecutive on-time Thursday deliveries to the Arts Center. The board had read it and looked at the dashboard footage showing the van's marked side panel in the center of Hawes' own camera for 3 minutes, before he approached the window and the board chair had put Hawes' incident report down on the table and sat with what she was seeing. The apology had said this should not have happened. 5 words chosen carefully enough to mean exactly what they said. Andre had received the apology and read it and put it on the counter and gone to work. That sequence, receiving an apology, reading it, setting it down, going to work, contains more than it appears to. It is not dismissiveness. It is not indifference to the acknowledgement. It is the action of a person who has a route to run and participants waiting at an arts center and a 9-year record that does not pause for anything, not even for a moment when something that should not have happened is finally acknowledged as such. The work continues. The route runs. The scanner logs each entry. Patricia Yuen signs the screen. The 22 youth participants who came to the Thursday session at the Millhaven Community Arts Center do not yet know Andre's name. They know the materials are there when they arrive. They know the boxes are staged in the lobby corner. They know the session begins at 11 and the things they need are present when it begins. They have never had reason to think about why that is consistent, because consistency at that level disappears into the background until it stops. It has not stopped. They will know eventually. Patricia will make sure of it. Not in any heavy-handed way. Just in the way that a person who runs a community program for young people makes sure that the people who make the program possible are named and known, because names and records and the reality of 9 years of showing up are themselves a kind of education. She will tell them there is a man named Andre Thompson who has delivered the materials for this session every Thursday for 6 years without missing a window. And one Thursday something happened on the way here, and he drove anyway, and the session was on time, and she will let them sit with what that means. The Thursday stream continued to grow. Not viral growth, not the spike and crash of a moment, but the steady, quiet accumulation of people who came back because they wanted to watch the route run. People who had found the channel through the clip and stayed for the morning. People who wanted to see Prentice Avenue come up on the route and the van pull into the regular spot and the scanner log the entry and the delivery made on time. Every Thursday, Over and over, the same ordinary working morning, made meaningful in part by having survived an attempt to make it extraordinary in the worst way. Made meaningful by the man who had survived that attempt and then picked up the scanner and driven to the next stop. If you have watched this story and found something in it worth carrying forward, subscribe to this channel. There are more stories here. Stories about people who built records over years that should not have needed to withstand what they had to withstand, and who kept building anyway. Stories about documentation and witnesses and the slow machinery of accountability when it chooses to function. Like this video. Tell the algorithm that this kind of storytelling belongs here and deserves to continue. Share it with someone who needs to hear it, not because it is comfortable to share, but because some stories do their best work when they travel, when they reach the person who needed to hear this particular thing at this particular moment. And leave a comment. Tell me what part of this you could not stop thinking about. The 22 seconds, the delivery that arrived at 10:49, the backup officer standing at the curb with his hand on the roof of his car, the dashboard footage showing the logo on the side of the van for 3 minutes before the approach. The phrase situation resolved without incident next to a record that documented 41 seconds of firearm deployment. Whatever part it was, that is the part worth sitting with. That is the part worth coming back to. See you next Thursday